Coming up today on Locked On Texas Tech, we got Bulldogs, baseball bucks, bowl tie-ins, and Bochy. Believe it.
You are Locked On Texas Tech, your daily podcast on the Texas Tech Red Raiders. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
We're going to start this thing off right. Raider! Everything runs through Lubbock.
Great to see you again on Locked On Texas Tech on the Locked On Podcast Network. Thanks as always for making us your first listen on YouTube or anywhere you get podcasts. Appreciate those everydayers out there. Back once again. He's the only Chris Level. I'm Casey Cowan. Chris, great to be back with you. And although I do enjoy our opportunities to talk about actual, student athlete news, say as it relates to Texas Tech basketball, there's another facet of Texas Tech basketball since Grant McCasland has arrived that has also been pretty entertaining, and that's as it relates to scheduling, because you had some in, then you had some out. You had Rick Pitino getting so butthurt over not getting this job that he called off 2 games. He said, I'm not going to play Texas Tech. And Chris, conveniently enough, timing-wise, this is all on the heels of a regular season that featured a schedule that was leaving a few things to be desired entertainment value-wise for the home crowd. And I mean that somewhat literally, but also somewhat figuratively. We got a little bit of news that sounds like, I don't know if it's news yet, but maybe just like level rumblings is a category of things we talk about. Hasn't been reported widely that I've seen, certainly not announced, but maybe some pieces falling into place non-conference-wise for Coach McCasland and the Red Raiders. And I guess it relates specifically to something that you pointed out, Coach McCasland touching on maybe a week or 2 ago, as far as where he wants games, I guess every year, if you can get them. And I guess one we'll talk about here today is in one of those spots in the Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex.
Yeah, so I think Coach McCasland was pretty forthright about what his interests were in the non-conference schedule and playing a neutral site game in the Metroplex every year. I mean, that was his quote verbatim. And I became aware of a situation. I think the Dickies Arena in Fort Worth, there's these kind of marketing groups, or there's these, ESPN is kind of in charge of some of this, but there are these marketing groups, and some of their just jobs is just to put things like this together in November and December from a college basketball standpoint. I mean, there's a cottage industry there on a business that you put on these tournaments, you lure teams, you sell sponsorships to it, and away you go. And I think the Dickies Arena tried to. There was a group trying to put Texas Tech and Texas A&M together in a neutral site game. This may have been 3 or 4 years ago. It never. I think there was some interest on both sides. It never, whether it was date or whatever, it just never got agreed to and finalized. And I think that, obviously Texas Tech had some different things going because you played in the Garden for so much. But long story short, Cowan, I think that Dickies Arena could host the Red Raiders this December. I was given a lot of specifics, which really points to, I think, they had date, they had TV network, they had triple header, they had all the opponents matched up. And the 2 Power 5 games, it would feature TCU, which makes some sense as the kind of the local team playing against Arizona State. The Red Raiders, which there's some interest there, and obviously already, as we've stated from the head coach, play University of Georgia, and then you have another local team in UTA playing Air Force. And there's a lot of military ties to sports-wise to the Metroplex because of the I'm trying to remember the exact name of it so I don't screw it up. Maybe it's just called the Military Bowl or the Armed Forces Bowl, maybe is what it is that's there. And you've got once
upon a time.
Yeah, you've got Lockheed there. You've got, all kinds of things that kind of tie some. So that's, I think that what Air Force kind of ties in there. And this is mid-December. Gotcha. It's mid-December, and that bowl game would be just like about a week later, or so. I think that Baylor played in that game in the freezing cold last year in that Armed Forces Bowl. So anyway, but that's what I think is going to end up happening here. You're right. I don't know if ink is dry on it, but FS1 will supposedly televise it. It will supposedly be on December the 16th. It will supposedly be a triple header at the Dickies Arena in just outside of downtown Fort Worth, which is an unbelievable 2-year-old, 3-year-old facility. And so there you go. So and this replaces the St. John's game. And I think this is better for you than the St. John's game playing in New York, but it's basically like 1 for 1. So
really?
Yeah.
You mean like from a recruiting standpoint, or
just
outreach?
Because I think your fans can get to it. I think you may get more bump out of playing Georgia than you would St. John's. Although St. John's, I say that they've really done well in the portal, Rick Pitino and all that. I say that for your fans being able to get to it. I think you mentioned your home schedule was, so many of your fans are would be able to get to this game and things like that. And I think that's right. What because some of them went to New York too, but I think that the novelty, maybe you played Tennessee, you played Louisville, you played Duke. So many people have made that trip before.
Yeah, and eventually the novelty of urine in the air, I guess, wears off, and you figure we could just go down the road maybe and play in Fort Worth. New York City ain't all that. I was just at Dickies Arena last weekend for PBR World Finals, professional bull riding, Chris.
And they're coming back.
Trip. That's
coming
right.
Back to AT&T next year.
This was my first trip to the arena. I was a fan of it. Was a fan of how on the outside you couldn't tell really that it was brand new. There was a little aesthetic to it. Bravo to whoever built it for not going down the postmodern Dadaism garbage route to make everything look like communist Russia. I think that was a good call, and one that unfortunately Architects Against Humanity do not make often enough. But I think that would be great for the Red Raiders if you had any chance to continue to be there active in the Metroplex and taking their show on the road. It feels weird for me to even say that out loud, Chris, because I've got such, I guess, divergent opinions as it relates to neutral site games in a basketball season where you're playing X number of games overall versus a football season, particularly within conference play. But that's a conversation we've had on other episodes, and I'm sure we'll have on other episodes to come in the future. I like it a lot more from a basketball standpoint. By the way, with all the bells and whistles going in at Jones Stadium, whoever's in control of those knobs, take a note from the PBR playbook, because it's pure pyro, explosions, and bucking bulls. Now, maybe we can't work in the bucking bulls, but I think the set list otherwise, pyro, explosions, and jams, like this is a nice approach here from professional bull riding. It kind of cracked me up when I was reading the description. I follow it on TV, so I'm not unfamiliar. But some of the event detail, this is not a rodeo format is what they say. Pyro, explosions, flames, and bucking bulls. Bone-crushing bucking bulls. Anyway, just as an aside,
it's
maybe
like
take a note there.
It's like monster trucks with animals.
1,000%. There's no, and it's the only way it could possibly be. You want women shrieking in fright from the proximity of the explosion roughly every 8 to 9 minutes, which is what we had in the arena there on Saturday night. Yeah, that's the way you got to say it if you're at any kind of rodeo or bull riding event. And this isn't with Georgia like some winner keeps Kyron Lindsey thing, right? Like he's still going to go back with us no matter what.
And that was the first thing that I think of people, when they saw opponent, they're like, it's kind of like, hey, Tyler Shuck gets a game against his old team. Let's do Kyron Lindsey one that way too. So yeah. and I'd forgotten. I went and looked this up just a second ago, but Texas Tech played at Dickies Arena in I think 3 or 4 years ago against University of Houston. That game did not go well. That was the game. That was the season, I think, post pandemic. I think that was the first season you were trying to get through after the pandemic and all that business and stuff. But you've played in Dickies Arena before, but yeah, it's an unbelievable building, man. It makes sense. I think cool. If I'm Texas Tech, I mean, I think it makes sense to post up there once a year from a basketball standpoint, especially especially that time of year, because like you talk about December the 16th, 13th, 15th, some of that sweet spot there, you're kicked out of your arena anyway because they're hosting graduations, which last 4 to 5 days over a long period of a weekend. That's when Chris Beard was doing the retro game at the Coliseum, or hey, let's go play a game in Midland because we can't play a home game anyway. Or that's when you've gone to New York or whatever. But I mean, set up shop in Fort Worth. That absolutely makes sense because I think your fans would totally eat it up.
Yes. You'll get some red and black in the seats and maybe do some Red Raider outreach that's good for the program as well. And I'll give you fans out there a heads up. The options on the beer tap, Bud Light, Michelob Ultra, owned by the same folks. We know how that goes for a couple old cowboys just looking for some common sense beer, right? All of a sudden, Ziegenbach the other night was the only path to common sense beer freedom. And these dark beers, let me tell you, they hit you a little bit differently, but shout out to the fine folks at Ziegenbach. I don't know who owns them. You got to do so much research to buy a beer nowadays. I didn't have all my paperwork with me and my charts and my readouts. So I apologize if I'm offending anyone going the Ziegenbach route. Okay, coming up dead ahead. Speaking of $10 beers, let's talk cash, Chris, because we've got, in my opinion, one of the most satisfying NIL stories to get to on campus next on Locked On Texas Tech. But first, today's episode brought to you by Birddogs. You want to be looking good? You want to be feeling great? You're going to do it with the most versatile short pants in the world with our friends at Birddogs. Head on over to birddogs.com/lockedoncollege. That's birddogs.com/lockedoncollege to place your order today and take home the most versatile shorts in the world. Nay, Galaxy. You think a pair of blue jeans can go 4, 5, 6, 7 days straight? If you're a man, you do. If you're a woman, that information may be shocking to you. Well, it ain't just blue jeans that are covering all occasions anymore. Since I got my pair of Birddogs in the mail, been wearing them for roughly 72 hours. Am I telling the truth or am I fudging it a little bit to not make me seem like a weirdo? The mystery is part of the fun, but either way, the most fun is the versatility and comfort I'm finding in my Birddogs. So head on over to birddogs.com/lockedoncollege and enter the promo code LOCKEDONCollege with your order today. And they're going to throw in a free custom tumbler as displayed beautifully on the screen. On YouTube, you're seeing nothing if you're listening because your ears have no vision. That's not actually true. Some people can see sounds. I'm off track. Get back on track with Birddogs and get yourself a free custom tumbler with every order when you use the promo code LOCKEDONCollege at birddogs.com/lockedoncollege. The most versatile, great feeling, great looking shorts in the world from our friends at Birddogs. Thanks for joining us on Locked On Texas Tech on the Locked On Podcast Network. Always glad to have you along for the ride every day on YouTube or anywhere you get podcasts with Chris Level. I'm Casey Cowan, and Chris, got some good news to talk about here locally on the campus of Texas Tech as it relates to name, image, and likeness. Monetization opportunity there available to all student athletes, obviously, in this day and age of college sports. But one of the examples that I really felt like leading into this era was a contrast to the, well, they're already paid. They're pampered. These are entitled these football stars from Alabama. What else do they need? We all know what the glaring examples were that were easy for people to kind of, I guess, go against and be like, what more do these guys need, right? I guess it was easy, even though I didn't agree with that entirely, but easy to do that with, a star athlete for a star football program, something like that. But the inverse of that, Chris, which was not just based in charity, but also based in some achievement, was a program like the program we're talking about today. A baseball program. I thought was one of the more interesting examples heading into this, specifically as a Texas Tech fan, because of how much success you had with Tim Tadlock, even by that point in time. One of the more interesting examples where I thought, wait, you wouldn't like for guys who were battling over, partial scholarship numbers and some paying their own way to even be a Texas Tech baseball player and being successful, you wouldn't like those guys to have an opportunity to get some compensation or to generate something along those lines. And this has been a long time coming now, as if you don't know by now, this week we have seen an agreement with the Matador Club and Texas Tech Baseball to essentially go around the $10,000 mark, as I understand it, for roughly 39 to 40 student athletes, Chris. Something similar that we've seen team-wide and some other approaches on campus. But the baseball example, at least as it relates to Tech, because of how successful they'd been, yet how little the resource is as far as those kinds of things are concerned, was always one of my favorites to discuss, because I didn't find many fans that may have, kind of had a sour taste about NIL overall. I didn't find many that would actually say, no, the baseball guys shouldn't get anything. You put it into that kind of context or some other Olympic sport contexts, it always felt a little bit different. So I'm celebrating this news for this baseball team. And I also think this is one of those instances where, in my opinion, NIL is of a new benefit to the student-athlete experience. I think this is a good thing.
Yeah, this is I think the grand plan, and it may be Pollyanna-ish of sorts, because I just don't know if there's enough money ultimately there. But I think the grand plan is to, try to give a locker room deal, which is what they've done here, to every program on campus. Now that's a lot. You got 18 sports and all those things, and that's why the Matador Club, it was so big on. We want the common fan, the common alum, to be able to donate to something like this too, and to have it be very meaningful. Because you have a building project, and it's like, hey, I'd like to donate $25 to that, and basically it's not like that anybody would, but they're like, yeah, no, that's okay. You keep your money. We're good. We need big donations.
We'll buy you the foreman's lunch. Sure.
Yeah, that's right. But what the Matador Club, the way it's set up is they need the the small donor, the big donor, the medium donor, and they wanted to create a like a sustaining fund that
Chris.
Yeah,
I'm sure if Kirby Hokut's out there, he's saying, "Wait! No, we need the other small donors for the other stuff. We want it all."
You knew what I meant, but yeah,
I do. Every little bit counts everywhere, really.
Absolutely, absolutely. And luckily, you've had individuals like Cody Campbell and Dusty Womble and some of that, really give. John Sellers, I think recently, there's so many others that have given their own money toward these building projects and are helping. And like Cody's case, really helping run the Matador Club, and they've been real smart with it by getting, legal folks, the ex-legal folks from the NCAA, to make sure that their wording is correctly. They're following all the rules, and it's a tax, a write-off and all that, because they're a 501c and all that stuff. But I mean, this was the plan. And so I think, football was the first to tap into this plan, but then you've since seen, obviously both men's and women's basketball and now baseball. And it's this baseball deal, it's a locker room deal is what they would term it as. And what they mean by that is it's basically everybody in the locker room is going to get something. We don't treat, the starting pitcher better than the fifth outfielder on the team. It's across the board. Yeah. And if you want to go get something else extra and you are worth that, or somebody comes to you, I think they would say to you, good luck. Let us know if we can help. But
sure,
this is what everybody's getting. And you're trying to be, so this is a recruiting tool to Tim Tadlock. I mean, bottom line, this is akin to the walk-on aspect for football. When you get those 15 extra guys, and you don't just give 85 checks for 25 grand, you get to 100. This allows Tim Tadlock to recruit a bit differently too, and to offer something for those fringe players, and maybe try to get them here as opposed to losing them to an SEC school or a Big 12 rival.
I thought I saw reported also, by the way, that the number for the football program had been bumped above 100 as far as athletes that are going to be involved. I'm not sure on that, but keep an eye out for that as well, because clearly that can affect the back end of your roster. And I don't know. Go ahead.
Well, I mean, let's think about it. Who was the guy we talked about last week from UAB? Reese Burkhart. If you identify him as a helper, you can really help us come kick off. And Reese Burkhart's sitting there looking at it and going, okay, I can transfer to this school, this school, this school. I mean, I'd be willing to bet you that he is one that is tapped into that funding, and that wins you a few battles that you normally wouldn't think about, is my guess.
Sure. There are so many things to process about how every fan feels about NIL, Chris, but then what I was saying about this context makes sense, just in the sense that I think it's like lost on some fans that you'll see a Texas Tech baseball team in the College World Series, and there could be a surprising number of those guys who are paying to wear that uniform or paying to be enrolled at Texas Tech University, and it ain't all full scholarships. And there are examples of that all across campus. So I'm not trying to tell you it's black and white, like, football's got enough, but baseball doesn't have enough. I'm not trying to say that at all. But I just always thought this is one of those scenarios, and Tech's got a great example of it because of how successful they are. That's part of it that's important to me as well. You're producing results. It's not a handout. It's not charity. It's not like, we feel sorry for you, so here's the locker-wide deal or whatever. This has been, arguably one of your two most successful programs on campus. Maybe West Kitley is the one you're behind. I don't know, but going back over the last decade. So I enjoy that part of it, to see, again, what I think is a benefit to the student-athlete experience, not just a duffel bag charity, so to speak.
Yeah, I think Tim Culp, who is newly appointed regent in the Midland, Odessa area, I think he's got a heavy interest in all sports doing well. But I think he's a big fan of Coach Tadlock in baseball, because when they put the board of directors or their board together, I guess, for the Matador Club, they really wanted people that they knew had vested interests in other sports and weren't just all football people, all men's basketball people, whatever. They kind of spread it out a little bit. So I think it was smart to do that, because you've got tech people, you've got really smart business people, you've got people that are fortunate enough to have some time to be able to deal with something like this. But anyway, I just was very impressed that, basically football, both basketball teams and baseball, man, there's a different reason to want to come play here now, and you're taken care of, man.
I was trying to remember if you had gotten to the men's basketball side of things. I couldn't, because I remember the ladies got a deal announced first, and I could not remember if you ever got to the team-wide thing.
Yeah, so let me rephrase. I think NIL was handled much differently for men's basketball last year. Okay, yeah. They are going to get a locker room deal this year, I am told.
Gotcha. Okay.
So and then if you want to go do something separate, same deal, go knock yourself out. But I think there were, I guess technically, good catch, and that's my fault. I didn't mean to mislead. But
I really didn't know.
The Matador Club didn't give across the board agreements to basketball last year. However, a lot of guys got big deals, as we know.
Yes.
But I think there was a few guys that really got nothing, including some of these freshmen that are coming back this year. They weren't. They were just a normal college freshman getting my cost of attendance check, getting my scholarship check, and all that, which are minimal. It can be on the scale of things. But I believe this year, there will be a locker room deal across the board for the 13 scholarship players, from what I understand. So I don't think you're there yet, but you will be.
Hate it or love it, you better embrace it if you want to compete. And man, I'm so thankful as a Tech fan to see what has been organized still relatively early on in this game. Still feels like you are ahead of the curve, no doubt. And if it, like you said, it's an advantage now for Tim Tadlock, and if you ain't got it, somebody else is using that against you. There's no question about it. So congratulations to those guys, and hoping to see obviously plenty more to come with the Matador Club or any of the other agencies around town that are more NIL, say, endorsement or marketing wise oriented. There's opportunities for businesses and things like that, clearly beyond this, but this is a great start for everyone involved. So kudos and congratulations to all those involved who have made it happen. We got a roundup to wrap it up coming up next. I want to get into a couple of things, Chris. We've got some Big 12 bowl tie-ins to clarify, and also Texas Rangers on Texas Tech night, featuring the hell? This can't be right. I'll clarify during the break. We'll get back next with more information on that on Locked On Texas Tech. Thanks for making Locked On Texas Tech a part of your day, whenever, wherever, however you're making it happen. We appreciate you being out there every day. With Chris Level, I'm Casey Cowan, coming at you from west of the 100th Meridian, where it's really going down. Chris, this is one of my favorite times of year because we get to revel in anticipating new bowl games that were old bowl games. You hear, this one's named this now. This one's named this now. This company's gone bankrupt, so here's a new name. This company actually never existed, so here's a new name, New Mexico Bowl. Sorry to specifically call you out there, but that's still one of the more hilarious stories in the history of college bowl games. Their sponsor wasn't real. This bowl game is now defunct, so we're moving it down the road. You know what I'm talking about. We all love it, and we all laugh at it simultaneously, Chris. I'm kind of interested about the Big 12 landscape as it relates to bowls, because I guess if some of what I'm seeing is right, or I'm understanding it correctly, there's some new tie-ins just by virtue, I guess, of some of these new additions that will be joining the league next year.
So, you know, I can't imagine that we're at the end of this news yet on bowl tie-ins and all that. I was kind of fascinated about that. People had not talked about it a lot, but you know, yeah, you really have the same bowl tie-ins and then 4 more teams. So there's not enough places to enjoy Thanksgiving and Christmas dinner yet at the table. It doesn't appear. So. What
Cincinnati, you're not at this table yet.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah, you're still at the kids' table, man. That's like, come on, dude. Although having said that, Cincinnati was they were at the grown-ups table a few years ago, and they were actually in the playoff. But I digress.
Oh my gosh, I saw some graphic yesterday of like most college football wins the last 10 years, and Cincinnati's like 3rd or 4th on the list or something. Why are you including group of 5 teams? Which of these things is not like the other? Alabama, Ohio State, Cincinnati. What are we doing? Sorry, just a minor bone to pick. My bad, Chris.
But you have the same bowl tie-ins this next year, even though you have 4 additional teams, but they have added the Independence Bowl only for this year and then 2025, because Army will get to play in it in 2024. So because BYU had the tie-in before, so basically they just scratched the BYU part of it and put Big 12 there. It's against a Pac-12 opponent, so that increases your bowl slot, I guess, by 1. So I think it's right. You have 7 or 8 bowl tie-ins now, and then whatever is going on with the playoff or the Big 6 or whatever. So. And again, as we talked about the other day when we were going through those bowl projections that Brett McMurphy did, I mean, he had 10 teams projected to be in a bowl game, you know, with Houston, West Virginia, Cincinnati, and Iowa State not being a part of that, the other 10 making it, and obviously the Red Raiders playing in the Cotton Bowl as the Big 12 champ is what he had projected. But Shreveport. So there was a time I had some memories that I made in Shreveport. A little foggy. It involves a riverboat. You know, it involves gin and tonic, which is to this day since that evening, not going back to the old gin and tonic. I was with some fellas. You know, we were kind of having a good time.
You learned your lesson.
And, you know, that's way back at the old casino whenever they just, man, do you even look like you're gambling? Sure, we'll bring you the free drink. I was of age and all that, although I think in Louisiana, I think you only had to be 18 to partake. But I was old enough and all that, so I didn't do anything illegal.
What decade was this, Chris? 90s?
Been a minute. Yeah, I think 90s is accurate. Yeah, so – as
a matter of fact, in Mississippi at that time, I think the drinking age was like 13. They expected you to have a family and a job of your own at that time in Mississippi.
I was on one of those, and they kept and the glasses weren't huge, but the point still stands. You know the little stir stick or the little tiny straw that you may or may not either use it to stir a drink out of, whatever. I just kept doing the gin and tonic. Yeah, sure. Hey, cocktail, the whole thing. And I think I ended up with somewhere like 16 to 17 of those little stir sticks in my pocket because I just kept saving them. I don't know why, but I'm like, I guess I saved one for every drink. And I'm like, and so, yeah, I gave it all back later that night. No more gin and tonic for me, man. I mean, I'm out.
How about riverboats?
I don't mind that.
Riverboats?
I don't mind that. And it was docked. It's just the riverboat experience in Shreveport and the casino experience. It's like, it's kind of like amateur night compared to like, say, Vegas and the real thing. And it's like hard when you go to Vegas and kind of experienced, this is what a casino is supposed to be like. And then you get on the riverboat and you're like, But hey, you take what you can get, man. But they certainly served me some gin and tonics. Probably I was overserved, probably a bit too many. Again, I've learned from it.
So it was their fault.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, for sure. Put it on them. And 16 or 17 straws in the pocket for a hell of a big man like Chris Level. That's not. Look, folks, he's not 5'2", 135 pounds. What do you think? He's a former Baylor Big 12 basketball player? No. This is Chris Level. Big handsome we're talking about.
Stands for pure and sexy.
That was barely a drop in the bucket. Hey, and I was trying to figure out what's our Independence Bowl history with the good guys, the old Red Raiders. And I see that we just actually exacted some vengeance on the guys that took us down in the Independence Bowl once upon a time. The Rebels of Ole Miss, who we just waxed and made them look bad doing it in Houston not too long ago. But it was 1998 when David Cutcliffe, their interim head coach, because of who? Pine Box Tommy wasn't around to coach the bowl game, but they got the better of Spike Dykes and the boys, 35-18. This tells me, Chris, the Red Raiders have not been back to the Independence Bowl since then. So I don't know if that's accurate or not, but there's some Independence Bowl history you didn't know you were going to get, and you probably didn't even want, but take it anyway.
That's right. Yeah, I don't think it's a game that the Big 12 has had ties with for a good long while, but Shreveport's an easy trip. I mean, especially for folks in the Metroplex. I mean, I think it's a 2 or 3 hour drive, I think, from Dallas, basically, to get to Shreveport and all that stuff. But, and they've renovated that stadium and all that stuff. But, I would say to you that I sure hope that the Red Raiders aren't playing that in either year, because I think it'll be one of those lower end bowl games. And I think, you should be in position to be better. So,
okay, before we're out of here, you want to talk about a bone to pick. And I was just picking this one from my living room. I can't imagine if I had made the trip out to Arlington. The Texas Rangers are now the home of what likely will be the American League Rookie of the Year, who is a Red Raider. And they also hosted a Texas Tech night last night at the ballpark in Arlington. I know that's not right, but I don't know what the new one's called. I'm a man of the ballpark, so I'm just calling it that again. So it would make sense for Josh Young to be in the lineup. He was not. If you didn't know by now, you do. Bruce Bochy made the decision that Josh Young would not be in the lineup last night. So I got two options, Chris, for this question. Is Bruce Bochy a son of a buck or a son of a gun for this decision? Outrageous.
This is look, any marketing or PR arm of an athletic department of a professional franchise, the last thing they will ever do is to tell the team how they need to do their job. And now I will say there's plenty of teams or coaches, general managers that are going to tell the marketing arm how to do their job. But at the professional level, so that's a one-way street. I mean, why did nobody at the game? What are we doing? Do we not let anybody know? But this is a classic case of, hey man, we're gonna ret out the stadium, and then you show up and the team's in all black, and you're like, what? Did y'all not talk? What's the? I'm getting mixed messages here. So I don't know how this happened. I think that this shouldn't have happened. Right? I mean, there's people. Let's be honest, that literally bought a ticket specifically to see somebody like Josh Young and get the fancy Ranger Tech hat with the double T on it or whatever, or the bobblehead or whatever they were giving away.
Yeah.
And for him not to play is a bit of a head scratcher. But nobody at marketing was going to be like, Mr. Bochy, we've got this promotion this evening, and like, can you put Mr. Young back in the lineup? I mean, that doesn't work at that level.
I do like the thought of somebody telling Earl Weaver, well, we're giving out a poster of this guy tonight, so would you mind sticking him in the lineup? What are you doing, Bochy? Just because you think you're in first place? You know something?
And I'd be willing to bet you that Bruce Bochy had zero idea, nor would he have cared had he been told that it was, quote unquote Texas Tech night at the ballpark. I mean, those guys get in their own little world. They're cocooned up and they're kind of just got the blinders on.
That cocoon, Boost, Bochy, come on, buddy.
Yeah, but somebody probably has told him now, and I don't know, maybe future schools if they've got a player on the roster, they'll get to see some time, So I don't know, but whatever. It was weird
Bruce,
deal.
You might have a word or two from a Tech fan you encounter someday down the road, but just keep those boys in first place, and I'm sure they'll forget it real quick. Being a Tech fan is a character-building experience, so probably a little more high-character folk walking out of that stadium as Tech fans that made the trip, showed up, and didn't get to see the probable rookie of the year, who was also a Tech guy. And don't misconstrue my laughter for non-sympathy, because I certainly feel for you. I'm just happy to be here. That's why I'm smiling from ear to ear. Chris, always happy to be with you, man. And we're going to be back doing it once again tomorrow to wrap up the week. Looking forward to it. And I thank you for the time as always, man. Enjoyed it.
Yes, sir. We'll do it again tomorrow. Keep hope alive, everybody.
That's right. And subscribe on YouTube or anywhere you get podcasts if you haven't so far, so you never miss an episode. And check us out on the SiriusXM app, now available as well. That's SXM in the App Store. For Chris Level, I'm Casey Cowan. We'll see you for the next round on Locked On Texas Tech.